In late December 2019, doctors in Wuhan, China, began to notice something alarming: a cluster of patients suffering from a severe new respiratory illness, with symptoms resembling pneumonia but resistant to known treatments. Within days, that localized health crisis was on a flight to Bangkok, Thailand, then to Tokyo, Japan, then to Chicago, Illinois. By January 21, 2020, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention confirmed the first American case in Washington state. Less than 2 months later, the World Health Organization declared a global pandemic. How could a pathogen that surfaced in a single Chinese city in late autumn become a worldwide shutdown event by early spring? The answer isn't a shadowy biological weapon program, but something far more mundane and far more pervasive: the very system designed to connect the world. I dug through decades of air travel data and epidemiological studies, and what becomes clear is that the modern global airline network, built for commercial efficiency, has inadvertently created the ultimate vector for disease. This weaponization of disease spreading comes down to two critical, and often overlooked, aspects of how we fly today. Before the jet age, disease spread was a slow, arduous process. Plagues like the Black Death traveled along overland trade routes and sea lanes, taking years to sweep across continents, allowing local populations and governments some time to react, to isolate, or to prepare. The world was vast, travel was slow, and human interaction across great distances was limited. But the post-war era ushered in a revolution in air travel, promising a world shrunk by speed and efficiency. Airlines faced a challenge: how to profitably connect hundreds of cities with thousands of potential routes. The solution they landed on was the hub-and-spoke model. Instead of operating direct flights between every single city pair, which would be incredibly expensive and often leave planes half-empty, airlines concentrated their operations. They designated a few key airports as hubs. Passengers would fly from their smaller spoke city to a major hub, transfer planes, and then fly out to their final destination, another spoke city. Think of it like a bicycle wheel. All the spokes meet at the hub. This system allowed airlines to minimize fleet size, optimize crew schedules, and maximize passenger load factors. It was a triumph of logistical engineering, transforming air travel from a luxury into a commonplace experience for millions. The impact of this model is staggering. Take Atlanta Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport in Georgia. For decades, it has been the world's busiest airport, processing over 100 million passengers annually before the pandemic. It's the primary hub for Delta Airlines. On any given day, thousands of flights arrive from and depart to hundreds of cities across the United States and around the globe. This isn't just about connecting distant places, it's about concentrating human movement. A person flying from, say, Des Moines, Iowa to Frankfurt, Germany will likely pass through Atlanta. Another flying from Portland, Oregon to Miami, Florida might also pass through Atlanta. The hub becomes a massive, temporary melting pot. This constant mixing of travelers from diverse origins and destinations is the first critical factor in how airport hubs weaponize disease. In a point-to-point system, a pathogen carried by a single passenger would likely only expose people on that one direct flight. Their impact would be contained to a relatively small group. But in a hub system, that same pathogen-carrying passenger arrives at a central airport, spending hours in crowded terminals, security lines, food courts, and gate areas. They might sit next to a dozen different people from a dozen different home countries before boarding their connecting flight. The sheer volume of human interaction in a major hub airport makes it an ideal breeding ground for rapid transmission. Imagine a passenger from Wuhan with the early stages of a novel virus, feeling fine enough to travel. They fly to a hub airport like Los Angeles International. While waiting for their connection to London Heathrow, they use a restroom, grab a coffee, and sit in a crowded lounge. They might unknowingly transmit the virus to someone heading to Sydney, Australia, another person flying to Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and several others connecting to different cities across the United States. Within hours, that single localized infection has the potential to seed outbreaks in multiple new continents, bypassing all traditional barriers of geography and time. This brings us to the second, and arguably more insidious, aspect: speed and reach. The modern hub-and-spoke system compresses the spread of a pathogen from what once took months or years into a matter of days. In 2003, severe acute respiratory syndrome, or SARS, first emerged in Guangdong Province, China. Within weeks, it had spread via air travel to Hong Kong, then to Vietnam, Singapore, and Canada. A single infected doctor in Hong Kong, for example, checked into a hotel, unknowingly infecting guests who then flew to different countries, igniting new outbreaks in Toronto and elsewhere. 8 years later, in 2009, the H1N1 swine flu virus, originating in Mexico, reached the United States and then spread globally at an unprecedented pace, declared a pandemic just 2 months after its identification. These examples demonstrate that the system, designed to move people and goods efficiently, also moves biological threats with equally devastating efficiency. The weaponized nature isn't about malicious intent. It's about the system's inherent design making it incredibly effective at rapid, widespread dissemination of biological agents, whether they are viruses, bacteria, or other pathogens. The economic consequences of this accelerated spread are immense. When a localized outbreak can become a global pandemic in weeks, the only effective initial response governments have is to shut down the very connectivity that caused the problem. Travel bans, border closures, and lockdowns become necessary to slow the spread, but these measures come at a staggering cost. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the global economy lost trillions of dollars in output. Industries like tourism and hospitality were decimated, supply chains fractured, and international trade ground to a halt. The swiftness of the diseases movement meant that proactive, localized containment was nearly impossible, forcing reactive, global shutdowns. The paradox here is striking. Airlines, in their pursuit of connecting the world, created a network that, under the threat of a novel pathogen, can quickly disconnect it. They optimized for speed, cost, and passenger volume, never truly accounting for the epidemiological fragility inherent in centralizing human movement to such an extreme degree. The system performs its job of connecting disparate points with incredible efficiency, but it does so without discrimination, acting as a neutral carrier for both commerce and contagion. Consider the role of specific geographic locations in this network. A city with a major international hub isn't just a destination, it's a node in a global biological web. Its vulnerability to an imported pathogen is directly proportional to its connectivity. Cities like New York, London, Dubai, and Singapore, by virtue of their status as critical air travel junctions, become primary entry points for new diseases, regardless of where those diseases originate. Their economic strength, built on global connectivity, is also their Achilles heel. Traditional public health measures, built for a slower, less interconnected world, struggle to keep pace with this modern reality. Contact tracing, isolation, and quarantine are all designed to interrupt chains of transmission. But when a single infected individual can expose dozens of people from dozens of different regions in a matter of hours at a hub airport, the sheer scale of potential contacts overwhelms these systems almost immediately. The challenge isn't just treating the sick, it's understanding and managing a network that can outpace any human intervention. The global airline network, a marvel of human ingenuity that has brought distant cultures closer and fueled economic growth, has a profound and unsettling dual nature. It is the engine of globalization, but also an unparalleled vector for global vulnerability. The very efficiency that made it indispensable for trade and travel is what transforms localized health threats into worldwide economic and social crises, making it an unintentional, yet devastating, weapon in the hands of a microscopic enemy. If you find the forces shaping our world as fascinating as we do, consider subscribing to Tradewind. This challenge is compounded by the insidious nature of asymptomatic and presymptomatic carriers. Many pathogens, including influenza and coronaviruses, can be transmitted before an infected person shows any symptoms, or sometimes without ever showing any at all. These individuals, feeling perfectly healthy, move through the system undetected, acting as silent superspreaders. They board flights, pass through massive terminals like Dallas-Fort Worth International, a primary hub for American Airlines, which processes over 70 million passengers annually and serves more than 200 destinations worldwide, completely unaware they are vectors. The aircraft itself then becomes a concentrated environment for transmission. While modern planes have advanced air filtration systems, passengers are still in close proximity for hours. A 2018 study on influenza transmission on long-haul flights found that passengers seated within 2 rows of an infected individual had an 80% chance of contracting the virus. Even beyond direct droplet spread, shared armrests, tray tables, and lavatories become transient reservoirs for pathogens. Consider a single transcontinental flight from New York's JFK to Los Angeles International. Carrying 200 or more passengers, each of whom might have originated from or be connecting to different points globally, it effectively creates a highly dense, confined mini-hub of potential transmission in the air. This unseen movement of pathogens, facilitated by optimized routes and the sheer volume of dense human interaction at every step, ensures that an outbreak is not merely contained to a region, but becomes a truly global threat with unprecedented speed. The system's efficiency in moving people quickly from remote villages to major metropolises means that even rare diseases, once confined by geography, now have a superhighway to global dissemination. For example, in 2014, the Ebola virus, normally isolated to specific regions in West Africa, reached the United States when an infected traveler flew from Liberia to Dallas, Texas, before being diagnosed. The very architecture designed to shrink the world ultimately collapses its protective distances. Globally, over 100,000 commercial flights take off every single day. United Airlines, for instance, operates over 4,500 flights daily across its global network, funneling millions of unique individuals through its hubs like Chicago O'Hare and Houston Intercontinental each week. This creates a hyper-efficient mechanism for rapid pathogen dissemination across continents. This hyper-efficiency also leverages intense, direct connections between major hubs. Before 2020, over 70 daily flights linked Atlanta Hartsfield-Jackson and Dallas-Fort Worth, ensuring pathogens jump between critical national nodes. At any given second, over 1 million people are in the air worldwide. Subscribe to Tradewind, and the next video is waiting for you on screen right now.